Okay, welcome to Building Optimism, Increasing Resilience. Let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover today. Because of time, I'm asking that you please save any questions until the end of the presentation. My name is Sarah Padelford, and I am the presenter for our workshop today. I'm counseling faculty for GCC. I teach career and personal development, professional resilience, and interpersonal communication courses. Dr. David Gerkin will be our moderator today. He is counseling faculty for GCC and teaches career and personal development courses. Okay. Today, we will learn about academic resiliency, who Dr. Martin Seligman is, optimism and pessimism as explanatory styles, and finally, we will look at ways to change pessimistic thinking into optimistic thinking. First, let's understand more about academic resiliency. Essentially, these are skills that can be developed to help students overcome difficult or stressful situations. Dr. Thomas Aubrey, the director of our Behavioral Health Sciences program and author of The Resilient Learner, states that it prepares students psychologically and emotionally for the demands they will face in school and personal life, including mental and emotional problems, to succeed academically. These are some of the most important skills you will develop in school and in life to help you manage life's most challenging moments. Furthermore, we know that academic resilience improves students' academic performance, increases completion rates, meaning students graduate and some transfer to the university as well, and it improves overall physical and mental health, all important factors for living a healthy and successful life. Let's take a look at the academic resiliency model. This model is known as the PERTS model, which stands for Psychological and Emotional Resiliency Training, developed by Dr. Aubrey, who I mentioned earlier. There are 6 parts that make up this model, including self-regulation, mental flexibility, motivation and self-directed achiever, positive psychological strengths, interpersonal connection and support, and self-care and revitalization. Each part is critical to becoming a more resilient learner. For the purposes of today's workshop, I'm going to focus on one key component that comes from positive psychological strengths and also encourages mental flexibility. If you would like to continue building your academic resiliency skills after this workshop, I encourage you to take CPD 150. We also offer BHS 155, which trains students on professional resiliency skills. I'm happy to discuss your options with you sometime after the workshop. Let's move on and learn more about developing positive psychological strengths.
Excuse me, Sarah, at this point, did you want to do the poll, the first poll?
And that one is going to come in just 1 second.
Oh, okay.
There are many tools available to accomplish developing positive psychological strengths. One tool that research supports is known as cultivating optimism. Before we get into more details about optimism, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Martin Seligman, who's known as the father of positive psychology, and then we'll take that poll that Dr. Gerkin referred to. Most of the research I will share with you today is credited to Dr. Seligman. Dr. Seligman is an American psychologist who is known for his research and contributions to the field of positive psychology. and is often referred to as the father of positive psychology. He has written about 20 self-help books and over 250 articles using science to help others improve their lives. He focused much of his research on resilience, understanding the correlation between learned helplessness and depression, and optimism and pessimism as explanatory styles. Before we continue on, I'd like to hear from you all now. So we're going to take a poll to see how optimistic you think you are. And Dr. Gerkin is going to help us facilitate that.
Okay, you should be seeing the poll now, so go ahead and make your choices. Good, I see you're making choices already. Excellent.
Excellent.
Okay, it looks like just about everyone's responded.
Nice.
Now let's see if you can see the results now. Somebody in the chat, would you say, I can or I cannot see the results of the poll? Cannot. Okay, let's try this then. Now you should be able to see the results. Yes, okay, good. Thank you. So it looks like somewhat optimistic, 45% of you rated yourself as somewhat optimistic, 30% as very optimistic, and 20% as slightly optimistic, 5% not optimistic, and 0% unsure. So those are the results.
Nice. Thank you all for participating in that. It looks like you all have an idea of where you are as far as optimism is concerned. And it looks like we've got a pretty good group here. So let's go ahead and continue on to learn more about optimism. Becoming more optimistic can increase resiliency and motivation and improve self-esteem and mental health. Before we learn how to increase optimism, let's first learn more about it as an explanatory style. This may be a new concept for many of you. Simply put, explanatory styles are ways in which we explain the good and bad things that happen in our world. According to Dr. Seligman, your explanatory style stems directly from your view of your place in the world, whether you think you are valuable and deserving or worthless and hopeless. It is the hallmark of whether you are an optimist or a pessimist. Let's take a look at the 3 dimensions of explanatory styles. This chart will help you visualize the dimensions of optimistic and pessimistic explanatory styles. Permanence, pervasiveness, and personalization are the 3 dimensions that can be examined to identify whether a person has an optimistic or pessimistic style. There is also a formal assessment available for you to complete if you would like to get a better understanding of where you are as far as your style is concerned. If you would like information on this, please email me after the workshop and I will send it to you directly. Also note that there is a $10 fee to complete the formal assessment. Today, we are going to spend some time examining each one of these 3 dimensions. Permanence is the first dimension we will look at. Permanence as a dimension means that a person sees events that occur in their life as either permanent or temporary. A person who experiences a bad event in their life and views things as permanent will believe the event will last forever or a long time, and that bad events will continue to happen. On the contrary, a person who views situations as not being permanent will believe events are temporary. So when a bad event occurs in their life, they will believe that the event will pass soon and not last a long time. So let's take a look at a few examples. As you read through these examples, notice that there is a theme that emerges in the language being used. You may have noticed that the permanent examples use what is referred to as permanent language, always and never. Studying never works, or I'll never pass math, while temporary examples do not. Some subjects I struggle in, or my friend is in a bad mood. The language that we use impacts our understanding of the world, and it gives us an explanation for the events that happen in our lives. Let's practice. Cynthia, a nursing student, has struggled to keep up with her duties as a working mother and student. Lately, she has felt defeated and thinks, sometimes I want to quit when I feel tired and I see my grades suffering. In the chat box, please tell us if you think Cynthia is practicing permanent or temporary thinking. Dr. Gerkin will share your answers with us.
I see about 20 responses and every one of them says temporary.
Nice, we've got a good group here. Yes, it is temporary. So even though Cynthia was, excuse me, one sec, turn that music off. Okay. So even though Cynthia was tired, considers quitting, we can see that she recognizes this as a temporary event in her life. A key factor here was her use of sometimes, which tells us that she recognizes this event as a temporary one. People who view negative events in their life as permanent have a more pessimistic explanatory style, while those who, with a more temporary view, have a more optimistic style, as we saw with Cynthia's story. It is important to keep in mind that this is not an all or nothing approach. People can be somewhere in the middle or slightly more optimistic than pessimistic, or vice versa. There is an opportunity for everyone to grow, even if they are more optimistic than pessimistic, which we will discuss further later on. Pervasiveness is the next dimension we will examine. This dimension explains the impact of failure on a person's life in either a universal or specific way. If a person sees failure universally, it will impact many or all parts of his or her life. Alternatively, a person who makes more specific explanations will see failure impacting a specific part of their life. Let's look at a few examples. Notice here again the language used to describe each event. Universal language uses or implies all in each description. For example, all teachers are unfair, or books are useless. Instead, specific language limits it to one person or thing. For example, instead of all teachers are unfair, it reads Professor Smith is unfair. Instead of all books are useless, it identifies this book is useless. So let's go ahead and see if we can practice together again. Joey has a breakup with his significant other right before finals week. The next day, he gets angry at his mom and best friend for trying to cheer him up. He spends most of his weekend watching Netflix instead of studying. On Monday, he fails his final in history. In the chat box, answer the following question. Given the events that followed Joey's breakup, has Joey's breakup impacted his life in a universal or specific way?
Okay, I see the results starting to come in the chat, so that's great.
Okay.
Give you a minute or so to continue answering. It looks like they've stopped coming in. And most of them have said universal, but several have said specific as well.
Okay, so it looks like we've got a little bit of a mixed response here. For Joey, he is actually using a universal explanation for his failed relationship. And here's why. The relationship failure has spilled over and impacted his relationships with his family and friends. It also impacted his grades. Had his breakup only impacted his personal relationship with his significant other, instead of spilling over into other areas, it would have been more of a specific explanation. Good work, everyone. People who make universal explanations for failure in their life have a more pessimistic explanatory style, as we saw with Joey's breakup. While those who make specific explanations for their failure have a more optimistic style. Again, it is important to keep in mind that it is not an all or nothing approach. A person may be somewhere in the middle, slightly more pessimistic or optimistic, or vice versa. This is where the assessment I mentioned in the beginning can help. You can get an idea of where you are with regard to your explanatory style. Furthermore, the assessment identifies just how optimistic or pessimistic a person is in different parts of their lives. The last dimension is personalization. This dimension examines how you feel about yourself and the impact you have on your life. Do you believe you can create good things in your life, or that good things come from other people or circumstances, such as luck? People who believe they impact the things that happen to them internalize, while people who believe things come from other people or circumstances externalize. So let's take a look at a few examples. Internal examples read, I can be successful in school. I can create good relationships with others. My skills, and you can fill in the blank. External include, the teacher is an EG grader. Some people like me, some people don't. My teammates' skills, and you can fill in the blank. Notice though, that the internal examples focus on the self controlling or impacting the outcome, where the external examples focus on others impacting the outcome. Let's practice together. Maria is studying to become a veterinarian. She loves animals and can't wait to begin her career. After a rigorous finals week, passing chemistry, calculus, and English, she is proud of her hard work. She shares with her best friend, if I keep working hard, I know I can get a scholarship when I transfer. In the chat box, share if you think Maria is internalizing or externalizing her success.
Well, they're really all over this one. Everyone says internalizing, and one of them added, her, in capital letters, her hard work will pay off.
Yeah, that's a really great clue, right? You guys are right on point here. So she's absolutely internalizing her success. She's owning the passing grades that she received and all the hard work that she put into it. So she believes she can impact her future by working hard. Good work. Thank you for participating. So people who believe good things are caused externally have a more pessimistic explanatory style, where people who believe they cause good things in their lives have a more optimistic explanatory style. Maria displayed this in our last example. Remember, this is still not an all or nothing approach. A person can be somewhere in the middle, or slightly more optimistic or pessimistic, vice versa. Now that we understand the difference between pessimistic and optimistic styles, let's take a look at how optimism can be learned and practiced. The most important aspect of learned optimism is to learn how to talk to yourself with encouragement when you suffer a personal defeat. And there are 2 ways that you can practice this skill. First, you want to avoid using permanent language like all, always, and never, like we saw in the past examples. Second, you want to dispute your beliefs by using evidence or other alternative explanations. This requires practicing regularly. The more you begin to identify permanent language and beliefs that generate pessimism, then transform them, the more optimism you will foster. So we're going to spend some more time practicing in the next 2 slides. Sam is a biology major in his 2nd semester. He has been dealing with family issues that have distracted him from his studies. He fails his 2nd test in his 1st biology class. He thinks, I always get myself in these situations. I will never pass this biology class and I should switch my major altogether. Help Sam challenge his thinking. In the chat box, write a statement that disputes Sam's negative thinking. And think back to the last slide where we talked about avoiding permanent language and challenging beliefs.
I'll give you a few more minutes, a little bit more time on this one. You need to think a little bit and write a little bit rather than just quick one-word answers.
Yeah, great point, Dr. Gerkin.
All right, I see 4, 5 answers and more are coming in. I'll give it a little more time. Lots of great answers, but I'm still going to give it a little more time because some people think and write a little bit more slowly like I do. I would need a little more time if I were doing this, so we'll give it a little bit more.
Yeah, and we have plenty of time, so that's absolutely understandable and makes sense.
Okay, I'm going to start reading a few of these. They're really interesting, really good answers. There are all 3 points of view: first person, second person, third person. For example, someone writes in the third person, once the family issues pass, he'll have more time to focus on his studies and his grades will improve afterwards. Another person answered in first person as though they were Sam. In order to pass biology, I need to focus on studying and ask the professor for extra assistance. If I put the work in, I will succeed. Another first person answered, if I work hard the rest of the semester, I can pull my grades back up and pass this class.
Nice. All
This
great.
situation is temporary and he can achieve better scores on the next test. If he works hard, he can pass the class and so on. I'm going to pull out just a few more examples. Here's a second person one. Sam, you know your biology skills. This bad grade happened because of your family issues getting in the way. Continue to work hard, study, and put this effort forth, and you will do great. Focus on the little things and whatever makes you happy about the class and try to block out all the negativity. There's lots of them. I'll pick out just a few more. I'm going through a hard time right now at home, and it is affecting me at school, but I know that I love biology, and I chose this major for a reason. This too shall pass. Another person wrote a real practical response. I need to set aside time to study away from the distraction of family. There's lots of good ones. They're all good, but that's just a few I wanted to point out for you.
Thank you, Dr. Gerkin. These are all wonderful, and thank you everyone for spending some time to put some good thought into challenging Sam's negative thinking. I heard give it more time, study, ask for help, work hard, it's temporary. What a great way to apply what we've been talking about today. Some offered encouragement, more effort, refocus. I also heard self-care in there, which is a part of the resiliency model. And I love that this too shall pass. So that's again reinforcing that this is temporary. Notice how these statements that everyone generated here created opportunity for change and instilled hope for the future as well. It transformed the worst that was happening for Sam into something more hopeful for him. So this transformed Sam's pessimistic explanatory style into a more optimistic one. Let's do one more together. All right. Lydia is an English major in her 3rd semester of college. Her best friend and her had an argument. They left the conflict unresolved and are currently not speaking. Lydia thinks to herself, I never do anything right. Just like you did with Sam, help Lydia challenge her thinking. Write a statement in the chat that disputes Lydia's negative thinking.
Great answers are coming in. Keep it up. About 10 answers so far. I'll give a little more time for those again who think and write a little more slowly like I do. Good thoughtful response. I can tell you all are really thinking about this and reflecting on it and coming up with some great answers. Give about 30 more seconds for those who may still be thinking and writing. Okay, I'm going to share a few of these. If I can change my perception and thought of the situation to understand her way, I can better find a way to resolve the issue without putting myself down. Here's another. Lydia is projecting her feelings of negativity and heartbreak from her friend to universally apply to all facets of her life, which is untrue. Her relationship with her friend has no bearing on her overall performance as a person. Lydia can do some things right. The situation is specific, circumstantial, and temporary. Here's a first-person response speaking as though she were Lydia. I'm so disappointed that I had this fight with my best friend. We've been friends forever. I'm sure we can fix this and work it out if I just apologize and stop focusing on what I did wrong and rather on how to fix this. There's several that talk about fixing it, talking with her friend, coming to a mutually agreeable solution. Instead of thinking I never do anything right, think more like sometimes I make mistakes and I can fix them to help resolve the issue.
All right.
There's a couple more I think I want to read here. Try seeing each other's point of view and make time to have a discussion. You can both agree to disagree while still remaining friends. And there's several about talking it out. It's okay to disagree, but don't end the relationship. Key word is never do anything right, which expresses pervasiveness. I think that comes from someone who read or maybe even wrote the textbook. There's one that says, we can ask people who know more than us. It's okay to disagree, but you can reach a middle ground where your friendship does not suffer. The middle ground will allow both your feelings to be validated, so not one person is right or wrong.
Nice. Thank you, Dr. Gerkin. Were there any others that you wanted to read?
I think that's enough, but I think it gets the gist of it.
Yeah, I agree. Such great responses, you guys. I heard wonderful things here. So changing perception, that she's projecting universally and that it's temporary. That's a great way to apply what we've been talking about today. Again, sometimes temporary. I also heard conflict resolution and having effective communication skills to maintenance the relationship. agree to disagree, and then giving some mutual validation. So again, great conflict resolution, and it reinforces that events can be temporary because we all experience challenges in our relationships and in life. Our perception of these events impacts how we think, feel, and behave. Realizing that negative events can be temporary and impact a small part of our life instead of all parts helps to build optimism. Excellent work. Today, we learned about the 3 dimensions that make up optimistic and pessimistic explanatory styles, which is how we explain the events and experiences in our lives. We also learned by transforming permanent language and challenging our beliefs that we can help cultivate a more optimistic way of thinking. I'd like to share a quote from Dr. Seligman that helps us further understand the importance of cultivating optimism to increase resiliency skills. It reads, "The defining characteristic of pessimists is that they tend to believe that bad events will last a long time, will undermine everything they do, and are their own fault. The optimists, who are confronted with the same hard knocks of this world, think about misfortune in the opposite way. They tend to believe that defeat is just a temporary setback or a challenge, that its causes are just confined to this one case." Let's take one more poll to compare your level of optimism from the beginning of today's workshop to now. And Dr. Gerkin is going to help facilitate that. So given what you have learned today, how would you rate your level of optimism now?
Okay, they're coming in fast and furious.
I see.
That's great.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay, it looks like they've stopped. It looks like the numbers would indicate that just about everyone has responded. So we'll look at the responses here. A few more are trickling in. That's good. The highest again is somewhat optimistic, 38%. Oh no, I'm sorry, very optimistic is 50%. Somewhat optimistic is 38%. Slightly optimistic, 11%. The numbers are shifting a bit as people come in, but nobody said not optimistic or unsure. Let's go back to poll 1, take a look and compare. So I'm going to end this poll and share the results. You can see the percentages, very similar to what I just described.
All right.
I'm going to go take a look at poll 1 so we can compare. Here's poll 1. I'll share it with you. So poll 1, the greatest amount if you said you were somewhat optimistic at 45%, followed by 30% very optimistic, 20% slightly optimistic, and 5% not optimistic. Now let's go back to poll 2.
All right, so it looks like there was an increase of being very optimistic and somewhat optimistic, or excuse me, no, for very optimistic, because it went from 30 to 51%.
Big jump.
Yeah. So if you rated yourself higher, you gain some awareness for your level of optimism. If you rated yourself the same, this information likely confirmed what you already knew about yourself. If you rated yourself lower, you also gain some awareness and realize that there's opportunity to become more optimistic. Okay. And I want to remind you guys of that assessment because that can be helpful for you to gauge and continue working on it as well. Okay, you can email me if you want to take that assessment. All right. So if you are interested in learning more strategies for increasing your academic resiliency skills, please consider taking CPD 150. BHS 155, you can also consider. It's a professional resiliency course that we offer. And if you have questions or you're not sure, you just want to talk about it a little bit more, please feel free to reach out to me. This is my email here, sarah.padelford@gccaz.edu. And we are going to also include a PDF copy of this presentation in the chat box. You do need to download that before you leave the workshop today if you'd like a copy of it. And that way you'll have all this information, including my contact. But this time, I'd like to open it up for questions. Please use the chat box and Dr. Gerkin will share your questions with me. If you are here for extra credit, please indicate in the chat box if you are, what class you are in and your instructor's name. You can also indicate if you're an honors student. So just some identifying information so that we can get that info to your instructor. And you don't need to put your name. That's correct, Dr. Gerkin?
Right, your name comes in automatically. If somebody just said, I'm an honor student, I need a free choice point, that's good. If you have a particular instructor in the honors class and you know the instructor's name, that's helpful too to get that in there so you get your points. Some of you are putting in the professor's name, that's good. So lots of extra credits coming in. Remember also, this is the time to ask questions you may have for Ms. Padelford, so go ahead and give you a few minutes for that as well. Okay, I see someone that posted extra credit and said, but I do have some questions, so go ahead and write those questions in the chat. Okay, some extra credit information is still coming in. Do not see any questions yet, so I'll give you a little bit more time to see if you have some questions. Okay, here's a question. What would be a tip? Oops, just moved because of my extra credit. Or another question. What would be a tip for us to be positive while taking a hard course?
That's a really good question. And I think that we can even tie in some of the information that we have gone over today. So when we think about tackling a challenge, we can look at how it is temporary. And so we can change our way of thinking about something. This is a really hard course, but I'm going to work hard to overcome this challenge. I'm capable. So some positive self-talk. And as I'm answering this, I'm even thinking about the power of positive affirmations. Writing yourself a positive affirmation that maybe you post in your mirror or in your car, or you have an alert on your cell phone. that just reinforces your abilities to be successful and work through the challenge and complete the course successfully and use your resources. The counselors in the counseling department at GCC, we help with academic, career, and personal struggles that students have. We have tutoring on campus. You can do study groups. So utilizing those resources and focusing on that positive self-talk, that's a really good way to help yourself through those difficult courses. And we know college isn't easy, right? You're going to have classes that are difficult. I had many in my academic career too. So it's par for the course, but there is definitely opportunity to complete them successfully. Thank you for that question.
The next question says, is there an exit ticket? And I think she may mean like a ticket out, or when is it over? So how do I know that I've completed it? So I'll say that after the questions, there's a one thing I learned slide where you're going to be asked to give a response. And then I will be posting the slides for those who want a copy of all of the slides that we covered today, PowerPoint slides. So that's kind of the exit ticket, I guess. Another question says, I'm a recovering alcoholic almost a year now. Congratulations. I put myself in school, but somewhere along the way, I slowly felt drained.
I didn't hear the last part of that. I'm sorry.
I put myself in school, but some way along the way, I slowly felt drained.
Felt drained. Is that what it read, Dr. Gerkin? Slowly felt drained? Okay.
Slowly felt drained.
Well, first, congratulations on your sobriety. That's awesome. If you're feeling like you're losing energy and motivation, that's something that I would encourage you to come talk to one of the counselors at GCC. We are seeing students for video conferences and phone appointments, and that's something that would really be beneficial, I think, in a private one-on-one session or setting. And I wonder if we could put, Dr. Gerkin, maybe in the chat box, we could put the counseling email in there. Yes. counseling@gccaz.edu. You can email that email and request an appointment with a counselor. We would love to help anyone who is finding themselves at a loss of motivation in school.
Okay, that is in there. The same person wrote later that at first I was very optimistic and motivated, but I got stuck. I'm getting all the help, especially from the teachers. My positive self-talk is not good. Okay.
Awesome that you are looking for help from your teachers and you're using your resources there. I would also encourage the one-on-one session or set of talking about this one-on-one with a counselor, but just going back to a few things that you can do on your own. Positive affirmations daily. For every one negative self-talk, some research suggests that you need 5 positives to combat that. So the more you practice doing positive self-affirmations and self-talk regularly every day, then the more successful you will be at transforming your thinking. And sometimes it can be helpful to discuss that again. So please feel free to email that counseling@gccaz if you'd like to at .edu to request an appointment.
We've got several people asking about the slides. I'm going to be posting the slides in just a couple of minutes. We've got a couple more questions, and we'll finish those questions first. One says, have you noticed any connection between levels of optimism and student success?
That's a really great question. That's actually something that myself and a few other instructors are collecting data on. And it's directly tied to resiliency and the resiliency model that we talked about. So those numbers are coming, but we do have data that suggests that there is a positive between resiliency. So the more higher academic resiliency skills the students have, the more successful they are in college. So there is research there. And then we are collecting more data at GCC for some of the classes we're teaching. So when we tie optimism into resiliency from that perspective, yes, there is a positive correlation there. Good question.
Excuse me. Someone asked about when is the last day to sign up for spring 2021 classes? And I assume that's as usual, it would be the day before classes begin in January. But I would highly recommend you do it as soon as possible to give yourself a chance to get days and times you might want in particular classes you might need for your major. As you get to that last week before classes start in January, early to mid-January, there's often not as many classes available. Some of the more needed classes for majors are often full at that point. So, and you may have not the best time if you want your classes together. You may not have the best schedule either if you wait.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
Okay, a couple more questions before I post the slides. Do you think keeping a journal is helpful?
For some people, it absolutely is. Yeah. And the science behind journaling is that it helps us gain more self-awareness. So for some people, journaling is highly effective.
Okay, do we need to do anything extra for honors credit, like sign a paper or take a photo, or is this automatically applied?
So I'm going to email instructors based on what you guys wrote in the chat to notify them that you attended the workshop today. And then your instructors will need to apply whatever it is that needs to be applied.
So hopefully you know your instructor's name and can put it in the chat. If you don't, just put honors program. We'll send it to the honors program staff, and hopefully they can get it to the right instructor. Okay, another student asked, how do we get connected with an advisor for class scheduling?
You're going to want to email the enrollment center or call the enrollment center, and you can make an appointment with an advisor that way.
Another way is to search on academic advising on the GCC main website, and you should be able to find, if you put in advisor, advising, academic advising, those kinds of terms, you should be able to get the phone number to call and schedule with an advisor, or the email or chat. There's several different ways you can connect with them. Okay, that looks like all the questions.
All right, wonderful, great questions, you guys. We only have a few minutes left, so I would like to hear from you as far as what you learned today, or what is one thing you will do differently. So you can answer one or both of these questions, it's up to you, but I'd just like to hear some feedback. And you can type that in the chat box. I wasn't clear on that. That one got a little louder. Was that loud on your end, Dr. Gerkin?
A little bit louder than the others.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Okay.
Still see more coming in. Okay, the slides are loading into the workshop right now, so you'll be able to get those slides in just a second. Okay, let me read some of the questions. You should see the slides appearing in the chat in just a minute. I'm sorry, not questions, but some of the responses. I want to curb the amount of absolute, universal, and permanent statements I make my ideas and statements more nuanced. I learned the impact of permanent words, and I will write more positive affirmations to myself. I learned about universal and specific explanations and using permanent words. I learned to be more optimistic than I learned I am more optimistic than I thought I was, and I now understand how to better use my language to be more positive when I'm struggling. I learned what optimism is and how to change my thinking to be more optimistic. I learned more about negative thoughts, how they're formed, and how to combat them. I want to try to work on being more positive to myself. I learned that I really need to be aware of my negative self-talk and look at each situation separately rather than universally. I learned that no matter the situation, there's always a way to resolve the issue. The use of permanent words. I plan on being more aware of my self-talk and change my statements from universal to specific. I will start looking at everything as temporary instead of permanent. And I learned how to transform my pessimistic thoughts into a more optimistic outlook. Also, I learned how blind I am to some pessimistic statements that I make often.
Wonderful, you guys. It sounds like you really honed in on transforming permanent language into temporary, gained some self-awareness, learned about combating negative thinking, all wonderful things to foster optimism. We are just about out of time, but very quickly, these are some upcoming workshops that we are putting on for the fall semester. So we have The Need for Connection by Mia Hernandez, Monday, November 2nd at 11. Remote Test Taking and Test Anxiety by Amy Torgerson on Tuesday, November 10th. And Healthcare Literacy and COVID-19 Contact Tracing by Dr. James Wilson, Friday, November 20th. So please consider attending those if you can. And I just would like to thank you all for spending time with us today to learn how to build optimism and increase your academic resiliency skills. I'd also like to thank Dr. Gerkin for being our moderator today. Have a wonderful day and great rest of your semester.
Thank you.
All right. Should I stop sharing my screen at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
We've got a few participants left. Most have logged out. There's 9 left.
Thank you, Thomas.
Sarah, make sure you don't end the meeting until you've saved the chat so that you have all.
Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me. You're a great moderator. I would not have been able to do this as smoothly or effectively. Let me save this. And I can maybe move it to my desktop here. got that saved to my desktop. Okay.
Got it saved?
I do. I have it saved. Yes. And then do we need to stop the recording?
Yes, I need to do that. Thank you. Can you do that because I'm out of
Yeah,
that
I'm
screen?
looking to see how to do it. Yeah.
Should be right
Okay.
at the bottom.